Okay, everyone, welcome back. I'm excited. This one's going to be fun. I have made no beans about my love for a quality paddle. I did a video called Why I Use a $400 Paddle. I love my Lendal. I love my Werner. I think they're both great paddles. As I mentioned in my last video, I'm about to buy an Aquabound Carbon to give that a fair shake to see how that matches up. But then I had this other idea. Like, maybe it's overblown. Maybe we don't need to spend $400 on a paddle. What would happen, just saying, if I bought the cheapest paddle on Amazon? Oh yeah, let's go. Oh yeah, I'm not kidding. Right here, this is the cheapest paddle on Amazon. This paddle, made by a brand who right now, I don't even remember the name, I'll tell you in a second when I actually see it, was $21. This is a $21 paddle. And hey, maybe it's all I need. Let's find out. There are two ways when you're assessing a paddle. There are two things that I think about, two things that I check, and that's what we're going to do with this paddle. The first is build quality. What's it feel like? Does it look? I haven't seen this, by the way. I just you see me opening the box, right? This box is sealed on the other end. I have no idea what this paddle looks like. I think it's blue. Yeah. So build quality. Does it look like it was built well, with care, with precision? Are the parts, particularly the parts that join together, were they finely crafted? Is there like glue leaking out? That's what I'm looking for in a paddle in terms of construction. And then there's, when it's on the water, a feel for that. And that's hard to describe. Does it feel good? Does it not feel good? Weight is definitely a factor. Swing weight is definitely a factor. A lighter paddle in general is better. I do know that this paddle is heavier than both my Werner and Lendal. And as I said that, I was like, is it as heavy as both? Not quite as heavy as both, but still, it's definitely a heavier paddle. But these are the things that I look for in a paddle. And so I leave tomorrow for the Outer Banks. I'm going to run through today the physical. How does it look? How does it feel in my hand here? And then part 2 of this video will be next week, when I'll get it on the water, and we'll talk more about paddle feel and what I look for in paddle feel. This paddle was only available as a 220. Let's do a quick aside on paddle sizing. Okay, quick aside on paddle sizing. I think I've talked about this in other videos. Paddles are measured in centimeters. My paddles, the paddles that I use, are 220, which is in the middle of the range. In general, it's 210, 220, 230, 240. A couple of companies make 215s. We're seeing, for the fishing world, longer paddles, 265s. We're seeing currently, some people are going to shorter paddles. Werner paddles used to have a fit guide calculator on their website, which they don't anymore, where you could put in your height and the width of your boat and your paddling style, be it low angle or high angle. I am a low angle paddler, and it would tell you what size in length you needed your paddle to be. And there's the quick and dirty, like from your foot to top of your hand could just come over the top of the blade. That's what we used when I worked for REI and had people coming in like, let's fit you for a paddle. That's close enough. That'll work. That's a rough guide. I think that actually works pretty well. At the end of the day, when you're paddling, the water line on your stroke should be at the throat of the paddle, which is where the blade meets the shaft. If there's shaft in the water, your paddle is too long. If the blade's not fully submerged, your paddle is too short. I would say worry less about the actual numbers and more about where your paddle is ending up. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Okay, back to me over there. Okay, aside over, let's take a look at a $21 paddle. It is in fact blue. Okay, so, oh, it's made by Carltion. I have no idea who that is or who they're owned by, if anyone. It's an injection molded plastic blade. It's got a fair amount of curve to it. Blade size is about the width of my Werner, similar to my Lendal Voyager, a little bit shorter though. I'm amazed at the amount of curve that has. That's pretty incredible. It is, of course, an aluminum shaft with a relatively standard ferrule button. Very little adjustability on the drip rings. Yeah, they won't go past this rubber coating. And this rubber coating is because the aluminum gets both hot and cold, which isn't nice. I'm not a fan of aluminum paddles for lots of reasons, but that's a big one since I paddle in the cold water. It's got some little hooky hooks for, that's a technical term, not a technical term, for grabbing a fishing line. So I could see a fisherman using this paddle. Let's see where it is size-wise. Ferrule has 3 adjustments, really 2 adjustments. It'll go 1 click either direction. Okay, so first test for me for a paddle is to join the paddle and then wiggle it back and forth to see how much movement there is in that joint. Just to give you a frame of reference, let's grab my Lendal and do that same test. I think that speaks volumes. So about what I expected. Is it in fact a 220? We're going to break out a tape measure. It is in fact 221 centimeters, so a little long. As I look at it in terms of build quality, besides that wiggle test, the blades are not held on by glue or an adhesive. They're held on by rivets, which is a little concerning. But beyond that, it looks like a fairly well-made paddle. So the thing that I would add on this wiggly joint is that literally today is the best day that this joint is ever going to be. Every time that you put these 2 pieces together, and I should say by far the most common paddle design for Euro blades is a 2-piece. And this is true for any 2-piece paddle, including the Lendal and the Werner. The more often you take it apart and put it together, the more that this ferrule joint wears. And the more it wears, the more wiggle you're going to get. So this has a fair amount of wiggle starting out, and it's only going to get worse. I would imagine the aluminum probably wears slower than carbon. Just the nature of it. I could be wrong. I'm not a metallurgist. If you're a metallurgist, let me know down below. Let me know that you're a metallurgist also, whether or not you think it's more prone to wear. I will also say the edge on it is a little sharp, which I don't love, but beyond that, quality of the injection mold is not bad. The paddle itself feels fine. Let's get a quick weight, shall we? 0.85 kilograms, which is 850 grams, which is 29.98 ounces. Just for the heck of it, let's compare it to the Lendal. 650 grams, 22.93 ounces. So 7 ounces heavier than a similarly sized, but bench shaft Lendal. Significantly heavier. Not a huge surprise. Okay, so that's sort of fit and finish. How is it built? What's it look like? Things like that. Even weight to a degree. And things that, like, if you were a new paddler and shopping online, you wouldn't be able to tell any of the things that I just sort of did with it in terms of, is it a good paddle or not? And frequently what happens when you buy your first boat is you buy the boat and then you realize, oh, I need a way to get it home. So you buy a roof rack. That's money you didn't expect to spend. Then you need to buy a PFD. There's not a whole lot of, particularly for entry-level PFDs, there's not a lot of variation in price point. Like if you go to REI, those are going to start at about 80 bucks and go to like 110, 120. You can't really save a whole lot of money there, but you can save a lot of money on paddles. And I consistently saw that new boat owners would buy a great boat and a cheap paddle. And what I always said was, it's kind of like buying a Ferrari and putting cheap tires on it. Now that said, I haven't driven these tires yet. So in a week, you'll see another video on this. It'll be a shorter one, I think. It depends on how this feels. We're going to put these proverbial tires on the Ferrari. We're going to drop the 17 into the water and paddle it with this guy. Hit like, hit subscribe if you want to see what that looks like. I think it's going to be wild. Join me next week. We'll see how it plays out. You can buy me a coffee on Coffee. My gear lists and everything is on Coffee. Books and risk management stuff and stickers, all that stuff is on Coffee. All that would help out the channel and you can buy something that's cool for you. Okay, I'll see you on the water with a very different paddle.